These two, the Cliburn and the Horowitz have been on tour for 10 years?
Yes.
Whoa. And when you say anyone can play them, what does that mean? I can go in and play it?
Yes. You have to make a little arrangement.
But I have to call ahead.
You have to call ahead, and they sort of qualify you. You know, they don't want you coming in and banging. And then you get a little certificate that you have.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, just in the store. I can't. But could I also lease it to play at Symphony Hall?
No.
Could you?
No.
Oh, you can't?
Although I'm going to play a concert for them on January 4th in the store because I've gotten sort of in love with that piano. If it's suddenly missing, I warned them.
Yeah,
you can come looking in my house.
Let's start with the Horowitz piano and just tell a little bit about its history. It was built in 1943. Was it built for him?
No, it wasn't built for him, but it was his private personal piano, and nobody else played it. And it did live at his townhouse. I checked that out. For the most part, it lived there, especially when he went into retirement, Susan, because he took himself off the concert stage, for about 20 years. He believed his fingers were made of glass, and he had a terror of performing in public. And that's when he did some of his most intense introspection work at the piano, and that beautiful piano, which has an unusual serial number, 314503. And I asked, most big concert grands are called CD, which stands for Concert Department, but that never rented. It was not allowed, so it has no CD. It's got its whole serial number, and it was his piano. And the only time that it was at the doctor was when it went back to Steinway to be groomed for him to, restrung or the hammers voiced or something.
And so he died in 1989. Has it been with Steinway since then?
Yes. It lives at Steinway on 57th Street. And they've been sort of roaming around, like my stallions. I think of them that way. But they don't go out on the road all the time. They're sort of taken out, I think, for special occasions. Miles Chapin, a relative, he's the son of Schuyler Chapin, has written a book about the Steinway family and about pianos, because he's related to the Steinway family. And that, I think, is a kind of a new hook. So they took the four pianos on the road, the Horowitz, the Modern D, the Cliburn, and the Rhapsody piano.
Good. We'll get to each of them separately as we go, so hang on. You said that Horowitz thought his fingers were of glass.
Yeah, he had some kind of psychosis, and no amount of psychiatry would dissuade him of that. And that's a well-known fact.
In other words, they were so... So, when you play this piano then, does it feel as if it's a piano designed not to break your fingers?
Yeah. It sort of encourages me. It's a very, it's like a big, wonderful new mattress. There's a great sustain. It has a velvety quality to the sound, and it doesn't decay. There's a fantastic ability that the sound keeps ringing. And I asked the Steinway manager, is that something that Franz Mohr developed, his pet tuner? No. He says a piano's born with that. That's inherent in the beast. So that's why Horowitz, once he found that piano and stumbled on it, then that was his. He got a lockup on it.
And it would be a property only true of that particular piano?
Yes.
Or of all of that sort of pianos made that year?
No, that piano. And he took that piano to Russia. Can you imagine schlepping a piano on his big, that last big tour he made? And it's a beat-up looking thing. It's not any fancy piano because it went on many, a moving van. He was a very highly strung man. When he would come to Boston, he'd take over a whole floor of the Ritz. His cook had to have access to the kitchen because he had to have either filet of sole or like Jewish soup chicken. That's the only things his stomach would tolerate. And he had his entourage, his wife, her friend, the tuner, a masseur, the cook.
And the piano.
Yep. And 314503. Okay. It's one of those experiences that pianists have since what we do is so tactile and it's so involved with our fingers, that when you go down on the key bed, it's a very short ride. And if the piano helps you and sort of goes with you, it encourages you to be more free and therefore more musical, more expressive. And
in other words, the keys are not resisting the pressure of your fingers?
Exactly. There's no resistance. It's like falling down into a whole pile of feathers. And there's this velvetiness, and no matter how many layers of sound and color, and since he loved Chopin, Scriabin, Liszt, Rachmaninoff, Schumann, all those composers require a lot of almost gouache with the pedal. It has to be very, very, very silky and extremely libidinous. And it can get very muddy. And that piano doesn't get muddy. And it also has huge range. You can just pound it into the floor. And you can also play pipi pianissimo.
And isn't this amazing that now he's dead, Horowitz is dead 12 years, but you can sit down at that piano that was his and it retains all that personality?
Yeah. Well, that's what excited me. When I was asked to play these pianos, just in store concerts, I thought, well, that'll be interesting. And then I sat down, I started to play, just trying one out. I thought, my God, I'm sounding like Horowitz. And then I moved to another piano, and it didn't sound the same way. It sounded different. And I realized, of course, every piano is intrinsically different. But his makes you want to keep playing. And that's, of course, what he liked about it. Because it is a symbiotic thing. The pianist is only as good as his instrument. There's an Italian word that comes to me, Susan. It's called cantilena.
Yeah, singing.
Right.
And that's how this feels when you play?
Yeah, it's effortless.
Okay. Tell me the story about that fantasy Stücke.
Okay. There was an article about Steinway pianos a while back in the New York Times, and I was amused that a salesman who had sold more pianos than any other salesman ever, and he was asked, well, what do you play? What piece do you sit down and demo? And he says, well, there's this little sort of innocuous Schumann piece, and I stroll into it, and that clinches the sale because everybody thinks, oh, I can play that. Maybe I just need a Steinway piano, and I'll be sounding just like that.
So we all think we can do it, huh? Yeah. It sounds so simple.
Yeah. Well, it is. Right. It's easy. It is an easy piece. You can.
I don't believe it. Yeah. I don't believe it.
You hear that living quality in the sound? Well, in music terms, it's called a decay. They use it also with mics. And that piano almost has no decay. And when I play that note, I'm not putting down the pedal. That is the piano's own voice.
So you mean what you're saying is it stays, the sound stays full for a long time.
Exactly. It's full bodied. It's like this fantastic bowl of sound, and I think it lasts for almost 6-7 seconds. That's a long time. And then if you start to pile up the next note, you're getting a very rich layering. And that's what makes that piano so beautiful. It's like a great voice.
When you were sitting playing Tremora, you said, off Michael asked, but maybe you can do it again, that it was like a license to kill playing that Horowitz piano.
You like that?
Yeah. Say it to me again and explain what you mean.
Okay. Well, it's like buying a new mattress, when you've been sleeping on a bag of rocks for years. And then you finally lay down, you said, this is fantastic. I'm going to have a great sleep. And a pianist has the same reaction. You sit down, you really don't know what you're going to be dealing with. You're going to be doing something in public. You're very exposed. You pray that the piano will meet you halfway. Horowitz's piano meets you 90% of the way. And the ride or the sleep is just so comfy. And it encourages the pianist to be a better musician. And that's a very special thing. And a pianist needs that because the sound is always leaving you. That's why pianists are so neurotic. That's why they're always practicing, because they're hoping to recapture that. And also the piano is away from your body. So, and that's always the problem. Pianists say, well, did I project? Did you hear me? At the back of the hall, that's their terror. And a cellist or a flutist or a singer, they have their instrument and their voice and their sound right up close to their body, so they know they're in control of it. The pianist, it's like a foster child. You just throw it sort of to the winds. And that piano helps you to feel that you're in control of what you're doing.
But here is it's not a brand new piano, but it's a just built piano, a concert grand, the largest one that they make.
Right.
And how do you compare this to playing that older Horowitz?
Well, there's a certain, I think of fabric. You know how when you look at bright silver fabric or metallic paint, it's very beautiful, but it's not like velvet or it's not like chinchilla. It doesn't invite you in. And this piano has a glacial quality, and it's also not as sensitive, the key bed. I had to work at it. I felt muscles in my forearm, and that's why I chose rags, because a rag you can kind of thump along, and you want it to be very crunchy.
But it sounds like a new pair of shoes.
It is beautiful from the outside and killing you inside. That's cute.
Good. Let's go on to Van Cliburn.
Okay.
We're doing well here. Okay, so talk to me now about playing this Van Cliburn piano. It's the same size, pretty much, as you've been playing. But what's different? What's different?
It's very much harder in action, and it doesn't have all the levels. It gets very loud quick. It heats up, and I think Van Cliburn is supposed to have liked that. He really liked to come on strong. I remember at Tanglewood, he had a fear of waiting backstage, and I thought it was the ultimate in sort of chutzpah. He would have the driver, at the end of the interval, drive him so that he didn't even have to, he just went from his limousine on stage. I'd never seen an artist do that. Of course, that means the whole Boston Symphony is on stage waiting. But to time it that way is because he didn't like that sort of waiting for your death, that backstage scene where you're in the little room waiting for, pretending that, this is exactly where you want to be, when in fact it's not an execution exactly, but those last minutes, you want to get out there and get on with it.
And he wanted a piano that was as ready to deliver as he was?
Exactly. Just like a huge stallion waiting to roam. And that piano, I had to control it. It doesn't want to play soft, whereas Horowitz's piano really wants to play soft. That's the big difference. And I found it difficult to sort of rein it in, really, Van Cliburn's piano.
I wonder, just because of him physically, he's a tall man.
Yes.
He has large hands.
Very. He can stretch a 14th. He's very tall and gangly. And, of course, he just captured the Russians' heart because he was such a Texan. And when he played the Tchaikovsky and the Rock Third, he played it apparently in a very musical way. And the third movement of the Tchaikovsky has some kind of an old Russian folk song. And he played it slowly, and the Russians appreciated that. He didn't just crash bang through it. I sort of like that idea. And then I love the fact that he never forgot that he was an American, even after the ticker tape parade. And he started to play McDowell.
What do you know about the history of this piano? When it was built, when he first played it, any of that?
They don't know much about it. It just lives in New York, and he has other pianos. He lives in Shreveport, Louisiana. I asked about it. He's going to play it in Boston. He's going to be here for a big gala in his honor, and he's agreed, I hope, to play this piano. I think it was probably built in the 50s. And
But unlike the Horowitz, which is played only by him, this one has been played by others, or... I mean, was it called the Van Cliburn piano because he too played it, or?
I don't think others have rented it. No. They're drowning in pianos there at 57th Street. There's a huge basement that is almost a block wide and a block long. It's fun to go down there because you run into famous pianists. They're over picking out a piano.
Right. Is this action so quick because it's an older piano?
No, That's a good question. No, the actions are all controlled, and they have a lot to do with the voicing. Sometimes if a piano seems slow and thick and the action is hard, the tuner will voice the piano, and that's, you'd think, would have nothing to do with the action, but it does. They take the hammers out, Susan, and they take a thing that looks like those picks that you tease your hair with. That's a kind of a thing made of metal that has like 5...
Tines.
Tines, exactly.
Uh-huh.
And the tuner has a small thing like that, and the tines are deadly sharp. And they jab that thing into the hammers. And they make the hammer, because the hammer gets packed down. It's felt that being constantly banged, at the end of the hammer. It gets very packed and hard sounding. And when they shove that pick in there, it frees up the felt and makes it all fluffy again.
Oh, it aerates it.
Exactly.
Kind of fluffs it up.
Yeah, that's what they do, with turf. They take plugs of the lawn out of a big turf.
At a race course or someplace.
Exactly.
So, but what was your point about that? So, why'd you bring that up?
Well, it makes the action, it speeds it up, but it doesn't make the sound harder. Because when you fluff up the hammer, the sound becomes more velvety, but it's easier to play. Don't ask me why. It's a physics thing.
So do you like the sound of this Van Cliburn piano?
Not really. No, I find it very hard to control. I would love to have this piano at an outdoor concert, like Tanglewood, or, if you're in a bowl and you're really just supposed to blast 150 men off the stage. If you come out, you really want armaments. You want munitions in your back pocket.
And this
artillery.
Would do it, huh? Yeah,
artillery.
This would do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do it.
But really, it's so interesting. What you're saying is the pianos have personality, or
reflective of their owners chose them for that. Van Cliburn, I bet all his pianos are very brilliant. He's not known for he never went for the sort of subtle inner voice shtick. His was the big, bold, beautiful signal, wonderful big phrases because of those hands you mentioned.
Let's do the Rhapsody piano now. Frank Polaro, it says, and are these, now tell me about these stars. Are they silver or they're mother of pearl?
They're mother of pearl. Well, they look silver. 400.
It sounds, what?
400 of them.
400. Oh, yes. 400.
Yep. All different. All different sizes.
Unbelievable.
Jammed into the blue wood.
Now, nobody owns this piano. They just did it, right?
Right. It's what they call an art case. And Steinway has made art case pianos going way back to, sort of pre-Raphaelite times, 1880. They sometimes have inlay, and they're sometimes painted. They did that with harpsichords back in the Baroque period. So there's a precedent for having a very fancy case. But this particular blue one is kind of unreal because the music rack is the outline of Manhattan. Can you envision that? All the skyscrapers in the music rack instead of furbelows, and the sort of things that usually are on a music rack.
Okay, let's listen to I Got Rhythm. You talk a little bit about playing this piano. Let's hear it though. So how was this one to play?
It's fun. It's a fun piano. I mean, when was the last time you sat down at a blue piano? It's bright blue. It's tiger maple. It's been dyed. And it has 400 silver stars all over it. And a music rack that's the outline of Manhattan. And a bench that you could take a nap on. It's a big blue leather plummy thing.
But in terms of response or how the pedal works or quality of the tone for a new piano like this?
Yeah, it's rank and file. It's just a very good piano. It's not up to the level of the modern D because I think the kind of person who buys this piano is not a professional. And Steinway knows that this is going to go into a theater or maybe into somebody's beautiful home, maybe some Texas oil magnate's, music studio or something like that. This is a piano that you sort of just drop dead in front of because of the look of it. It's very Art Deco. And it suggests Gershwin, and of course, you could play anything on it. But to me, it would sound bizarre to play Scarlatti or Haydn on this Art Deco blue piano.
Great. We're done, I think, with the music, but let's talk about Horowitz and his fingers again. The poor man. Yep. What do you mean he thought his fingers were made of glass?
Well, when he came to America, he had this stunning success. He played the Tchaikovsky first with Toscanini, and it was near World War II. It was in the 40s, and as an encore, he played Stars and Stripes, a transcription that he made, and it completely brought down the house. And he sort of, it was like he threw a kiss to the American public. And then he played other concertos with other conductors, and his career was going beautifully. And then he married Wanda Toscanini, and he began to collect major art, Picassos and Impressionist painters, and everything was going fine. And then at some point, I think about 25 years, maybe was it like into the 60s, he had an epiphany, and he started to have major terror. What I was talking about before, everybody sits backstage, and that's the dreaded time. It's really like waiting for your execution, those last 30 minutes before you go on stage. And he had to be pushed. Once he got out there, he was fine. But the dread of that, and then it apparently affected his days, and he started to dread performing. So he took himself off the concert stage, and that's when that beautiful piano went to his house. And I think he had some psychiatry, and he began to think his fingers were made of glass. And it sort of reminded me of the Cinderella legend, with her shoes. Aren't they glass in the fable? Mm-hmm. And he was afraid that he would let himself down because he had already played so incredibly well, faster, clearer, smarter than any other pianist. And he was always compared to Rubinstein, but he was the best. He set the standard. There'll never be another pianist like him.
But back to of glass. So when he thought they were made of glass, what did that mean to him?
That he would not be able to play as well as he had, and people would expect that. And if you've set a precedent in something, then you begin to have a kind of a mortal fear that you won't be able to go out there and do it again. Even though he had his beloved piano, he began to think that he'd have a memory lapse, that he wouldn't be able to play the octaves. His great trick was to actually, before these fusillades of octaves in the Liszt Sonata or the big octave passage in the Tchaikovsky First Concerto, or there are many octave passages, but there are certain ones that terrorize pianists. He actually would slow up and put space between the octaves, and that made them sound faster. Again, it's a physics thing, because if you listen very carefully, he's not playing that fast, but it's even more Machiavellian. He's put space between the notes. Now, how do you do that? Because you're playing so fast that it's, you're playing like 30 notes per second practically. How can you find space? Well, he did. He controlled the sound.
But no, I'm so sorry, Virginia. Focus again on the glass. Glass means what? So thin, so delicate, breakable?
Breakable. Thin, falling down, smudging, mistakes, bad, sad, no good.
But then, if I remember right, so he was off stage didn't perform in public for what, 12 years or something?
Yes.
Then he goes back, gives this incredible performance.
Here, wait a minute, I got it right here in this book. 12-year retirement. Yeah, he came back May 9th, 1965.
Yeah, and it was heaven. I mean,
people remember they camped out for something like 3 days and nights when it was announced that he was going to perform, people camped out in sleeping bags around Carnegie Hall to buy seats.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Hang on. I think we're fine. Is there any sort of other sort of winding up thing that we need to do, or Fawn, anything? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So when you go home from Steinway, Virginia, to your modest little home,
yes.
what have you got there to play
for
in
my
your
own
real life? In your real life,
I have a Steinway B that I bought at Tanglewood because I used to be married to a cellist, and they forgot to take it home one summer, and it's from the concert department. It has CD inside of it, and it also has the big rails, and that's an inside tip. If you see big wooden rails on the left-hand side of the piano, it means it's taken lots of trips. It's been for rent. And
where are the rails? Inside the case, or on the outside?
On the outside, where it travels.
Railing like bars.
Yeah, big bars.
It.
Exactly, because it
so
travels.
That tells you it's been places.
Yeah, exactly. If you see those big, and all the pianos around halls, they usually have them because they break them down. Because pianos are wide. If they take them,
like bumpers.
Yeah,
sort of like
exactly.
bumpers on a car skid.
Exactly. And
so it's a pleasant piano you own. Do you?
Very. I had it rebuilt recently. It was getting a little tired. I got new hammers and Roslow wire, King George felt, all the good stuff.
Good. You need to put on some stars, I think, and get yourself some blue paint.
Oh, I put that sprinkle stuff on my face, so I'll sprinkle some on the piano.
Good for you. Listen, thank you so much. This was lovely. I really appreciate it.
Okay.